I had a client that was very needy for male attention, and started with some posts behind her parents' back. And so this is an adolescent, which is different than an adult, but I think it was helpful as far as helping me to learn more about some of the dangers too. I mean, it did not take long for predators to come out of the woodwork, soliciting her, sending her pictures of genitals. Like, I honestly had no idea. Like, you know it's dangerous setting personal information. I was more concerned about, I've had kids post videos that they've been made fun of for, or, we all know that you might send something, an inappropriate photo that can haunt you later on. So when talking to my clients, I tell them, anything that's on the computer or anything that's with social media consider that a public conversation. So anything that you wouldn't do in public, don't do on the internet. Okay? If you want to do something privately, that's in person. That's the only thing that would be private. We had to, at some point, you can take devices away for so long, but now everything's linked up, like all the class schedules, and if people need to get in touch with everybody, all these smartphones and things. So it's not really practical. So there are some things that you can do. Okay, when they're minors, you can certainly put filters on it. We can have discussions about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, what's good for our family, why we think that. We had a situation in our office where a kid saw a video and the parent was like appalled that they saw it at our office and that it was inappropriate, right? And I think, that was a judgment for their family. They didn't think it was appropriate for his age, and okay, legitimate, we can talk about it. But the other side is he has to, as an adolescent, stand up and say, you know what, that's not something that I'm going to watch, right? So we have to teach them to stand up to their peers, authority figures, and say, these are my limits, these are my family's limits, and set it up and practice it, because it's not going to happen unless you practice it. So that also what kind of alerted us to, this is such an important part. Internet exposure, I mean, my God, you type in something on YouTube. I typed in Spider-Man, okay, to make like a token board for someone, and the naked man painted in Spider-Man paint was the first thing that popped up. I was like, this was years ago. I was, and then everything else is like cartoon. I'm like, why did I get this? I don't erase this. It's the most innocent thing can pop up, and so we need to also help them know, like, this is why we don't want you looking at this. You can get the wrong idea, you can get wrong information. I'm going to show you some places where you can get good information, and I also don't want you to be engaging in this. Use media together. Talk about media. There is an app called Teen Safe that you can put on your phone, and it sends everything to you. You know where they are. It's got a navigation tool. It lets you know texts, even deleted texts, which is very important because I'm a counselor, and you'll be surprised. The sweetest kids will tell me what they're deleting. Well, mom won't know because I deleted that text. And I'm like, okay. And so we have to, when it's an issue of concern, we need to get nosy. We got to get in there. And don't assume anything on the phone is private, is what I try to tell them. And I'm pretty open with my teens. It's like, I'm sorry, I consider it your parents' right at any point to go in there, look in your room, search for stuff. That's their number one job is to keep you safe. And if that's what they need to do to keep you safe, I'm all for it. That's going to happen. And you need to accept that, okay? And I want you to be able to have privacy, but healthy privacy, right? Okay, there's also some other kinds of things that I've put on my resources sheet. NetSmart workshop has internet safety information. Enough is Enough had some nice rules and tools worksheets that you can kind of talk to people about what's appropriate at different levels as far as internet use and safety. And Canine Protection is just an internet filter. I mentioned a few resources. So here is The Rules of Sex, the hot pink book on sex. Are there things I cannot say? Privacy issues and sexual rights. What about gay sexuality? What other kinds of sexuality is out there? How do I know what's not sexually okay? What is sexual abuse? Laws about sexual abuse. How do I know about the right time, place, and person to have sex with? Where people get confused is doing it in the wrong place, not understanding where it's private, understanding what it has to be where you can not be seen by other people, and you can lock the door and have reasonable expectations of not being interrupted. What to do if you're interrupted and something's going on that's private. What's the difference between solitary behavior and private behavior, right? If you want to listen to music, if you want to kind of hang out in your room, that's, solitary behavior. Private behavior is stuff that you wouldn't feel comfortable having someone come in and seeing you do, like using the toilet or getting dressed or engaging in masturbation, right? So it's all within other things. We don't have to just focus on that one area. It's important for us to promote same-age peer relationships. There has been, I've had many situations where there's been problems where people are, they have similar interests. So it's okay. He's so interested in Disney, he can spend time with the other kids that are interested in Disney. But the problem is when you start, if you're having peer relationships with people that are much younger than you, when you biologically develop, those are the people those are the individuals you're going to look for to have experiences with because they are your peers, right? But they're not. And so it gets confusing. Oh, it's okay, but then it's not okay. So then you have situations of 16-year-olds being curious, having, sexual feelings, but they're hanging out with 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds. Okay, not a setup we want. So just to be alert to that we need to promote same-age peer relationships as much as possible and not say, well, cognitively he's at a level 8 or cognitively he's at a younger level. He has the same interests. They both like Minecraft. They can hang out together alone. That is, you want to be careful about that, okay? A 5 is against the law is a really nice brief text on what kind of behaviors are okay and what behaviors aren't okay. Like that whole example of following her and asking her out every day when she's told you no. Okay, no, we're starting to get into like a 4. A 5 is when is against the law. Like you're not allowed to touch her, you're not allowed to harass her, you're not allowed to threaten her. And they give specific examples. You can write things out. It kind of addresses a little bit of both, kind of like aggression and also just inappropriate things that make people feel uncomfortable and gets into those areas. And so it allows us to kind of talk about that and gives a forum for that. So I like that text. But Crafting Connections was written to break down social skills into 5 skill areas and to, and provide programs for how would you teach things like why don't people mean what they say? How do you handle, let me see if I can find just a good example here. Interrupting other people, how to tell the difference between teasing and bullying. So it has a lot of just kind of general social skills kinds of things in here as well. Assertiveness. Appropriate assertiveness, which is a very important skill for us to be teaching. It's like, well, we know this is important, but how do I break it down? This breaks it down and tells you how you can practice it. And also talks about, I think, teaching interactions, which is one of our methods of practicing things. Talking about the importance of things, helping get client buy-in, discussing the skill, practicing the skill, talking about how the practice went, practicing the skill, talking about how the practice went. A lot of it's practice, practice, practice. So I know I brought in a lot of different stories. I was a little bit all over the place with some of my topics, but I hope I've given you some good food for thought, some information and resources for all different levels of skill and ability, and I'd be happy to take any questions now.